how much it's costing to simply drive around at the moment. Not very cheap, is it? Fuel prices rising sharply since the beginning of the year, and I'm afraid it's going to get worse. Government implemented that relief on fuel levies. Remember that R1.50? Yeah, it's gone. It's coming to an end at the end of this month, but many are calling for an extension. Economist Dawie Roodt, well-known economist. Dawie, morning to you. Good to have you with us. Of course, we want the fuel levy not to come back in, but the question is, can the country afford it? Good morning.
Good morning to you. No, I disagree with you. Actually, all taxes are always bad, but the fuel levy is one of those least bad taxes. And there are many reasons for that. The fuel levy is relatively easy to collect. It's a so-called broad-based tax. It's an indirect tax. It's very difficult to evade the fuel levy. So there are many reasons why we should actually continue with the fuel levy. But there are many other taxes that are doing far more damage to the South African economy. Company taxes is a very good example. And before people say that I'm trying to reduce the taxes on the so-called capitalists in the country, companies don't pay taxes. They always shift the total tax burden down to the individual in any event. So if I have to choose between all these various very bad taxes, then the fuel levy certainly, as far as I'm concerned, is one of those least bad taxes. The main issue here is actually not what taxes that we are levying in the country. The main issue here is that the state is simply spending too much money. So we need to get the politicians to spend less money because the taxpayer in South Africa simply cannot carry this burden anymore. That's the real issue, state spending and not the various taxes.
Yeah, I would be horrified to know what our credit looks like as a country at the moment, especially off the back of COVID-19, Dawie. But how is there any way, any wiggle room whatsoever for motorists that they could expect government or any other organisation to try and make our lives a little bit easier, a little bit cheaper, or is it just going to get worse?
Yeah, I'm afraid. Let me give you some numbers. Of course, the minister may decide to extend the reduction in the fuel levy for another month or two. I haven't seen anything on that yet. But at the moment, the under recovery on the petrol price is in the region of about, well, close to R2.50 a litre. That means that the petrol price would have gone up by approximately just less than R2.50 a litre in any event. And add to that the R1.50 of the fuel levy that will be reinstated. Remember, the fuel levy is still, we're still paying the fuel levy, just less than previous. The Minister of Finance, the Minister gave us a reduction of R1.50 for 2 months, and that's coming to an end now. If you add that, then I'm afraid we're talking about the petrol price increase in the region of about R4 a litre, which will push the petrol price up to about 25 rands a litre. This is the biggest increase ever in the petrol price in South Africa. So the question is, what can be done to reduce this petrol price? And the short answer is not really much. We can fiddle around a little bit on the margin. A couple of things that we can do. You can reduce some of the transport costs for petrol, some of the insurance costs for petrol. And the big one is that the minister actually mentioned that we could deregulate the petrol price, which means that you are currently forced to sell, if you sell petrol, you're not allowed to sell it below a certain price. But if it's deregulated, then as a retailer, you can sell it by as much as about R2 a litre less. But then, of course, you're not going to make money. So there's a possibility, if it is deregulated, that we can see a bit of a reduction in the petrol price when some of these retailers with competition reduce their margins a little bit by as much as R2, not more than that. But apart from that, not really much that we can do. We also have to remember that if we do decide to deregulate the petrol price, then more competition will result in a slightly lower petrol price in urban areas because there's more competition here. But that's not going to happen in rural areas because there's far less competition. So those are the sort of issues that we need to consider if we do decide to deregulate the petrol price. But the short answer is basically not much that we can do. But the reality is the rand is weak and the oil price is high. That's it. Somebody needs to pay.
Let's talk about that oil price for a moment. I think many people will, of course, attribute it, Dawie, to what's happening over in Eastern Europe at the moment between Russia and Ukraine. If that were, and I think I speak for everyone when I say we hope it comes to an end very quickly, the knock-on effect of that, if that conflict were to end, could we see a reduction in our fuel price? Because I always get the sense, maybe I'm just getting grumpy in my old age, but I always feel like the fuel price goes up. And when it does come down, it's not by much. It always seems to stay very high. Could we see a significant decline in the petrol price?
Well, I can tell you, I have a look at the composition of the petrol price every day, and the way it's calculated is correctly calculated. I know they're all sort of conspiracy theories, and the reason why it's going up over time is because the various taxes are going up. That's the main reason. But if the conflict comes to an end, there's a good possibility that the oil price can actually halve. I've made some rough calculations, and it suggests to me that the correct level for the oil price is probably around about $60 a barrel of Brent or somewhere there. So yes, I do believe that is likely to happen if the conflict comes to an end. I don't think the conflict is going to come to an end soon, and I've got reasons why I say so. But again, there's a bit of a sting in the tail here. Remember, South Africa, yes, we are importing a lot of oil. It's our most important import product. But at the same time, because of the conflict, or at least partly because of the conflict, certain other commodity prices are quite high as well, like platinum and palladium and that sort of stuff. And we're exporting a lot of that. And we are currently running a very nice current account surplus. The Minister of Finance is raking in tax revenue because of the high commodity prices at the moment. And if for some reason the conflict comes to an end, we have to realize that with that, the oil price is going to come down, but some other commodity prices are likely to come down as well. And currently, we are really getting, on a net basis, we are probably benefiting more from the high commodity prices than the cost to us as a country.
Dawie, just before I say goodbye, very briefly, if you don't mind. So if you've done your calculations and that oil price does come down, do you think it will translate to the petrol pumps? Could we see a reduction back down to, say, levels of last year?
Yeah, well, sir, without a doubt. If the oil price comes down to $60, unless the Minister of Finance decides to increase the fuel levy suddenly again. But yes, indeed, if the oil price comes down, if there's an end to a conflict in Central Europe, then indeed we will be paying much, much less for petrol.
As always, Dawie, I appreciate you joining us on a Sunday morning, able to explain that to us. So well-known economist, Dawie Roodt. So there maybe is light at the end of the tunnel. Let's hope so. Let's hope so.